Howdy doody duties. You know, I get many communication in different ways from a lot of you, and I'm grateful for them. I thank you. But the ones I like best are those that ask me for interpretations and how they were interpreted and why. The why is varied as the how. The difference is that the original Aramaic writing that's the language that Jesus spoke at his time, along with Greek. Greek was the ruling language of the world at that time, so it kind of fluctuates in between, but the meanings are different. In other words, what they talked about in the days of yore were basically the things that were meaningful to them. For instance, let's take the 23rd Psalm. And this is the way it reads in the King James Version. And from memory, because every little kid that becomes in between teenage usually goes through a catechism, whether it's Russian Orthodox, Catholic, Lutheran, you name it. It seems like all the different religions, and there are 270 of them, have some sort of a ritual that you need to go through before you're accepted as a full-fledged member. Well, the difference is that most of them use the King James Version of the Bible. And that, of course, was edited at the time of King James, and it was edited for more of a political reason than anything else. It was to help establish that religion as part of the ruling political scene. But let's get into the Lord is my shepherd, 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, and thou anointest my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Well, let's decipher that a little bit first. In the days that this was written, this is during the time of King David, the Psalms, why, they were nomads, and the predominant way of making a living, of existing, was being a shepherd, and the shepherd was for sheep. The sheep gave both wool and mutton, food, and there was, of course, some agriculture, but that was more the wild gathering things and the trees that gave the fruits. So when they say the Lord is my shepherd, like they took care of their flocks of sheep, why, they made sure that the sheep always had plenty of food and plenty of water and shade if needed. And this is what they were referring to when they said the Lord is my shepherd. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, meaning after you've eaten your fill of the green food in the pasture, while you lie down and you rest, and he leadeth you beside still waters, water that was easy to drink for the sheep. Again, the comparison there. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now this is a good one. Almost every religion in the world, not almost, every religion in the world basically talks about the afterlife. And they're more into death. Even the ancient Egyptians, which incidentally they had the first mono-religion, meaning the first one God. And they prepared everything for death. It was all about death. You lived your life to die so that you could get whatever reward would be there when you were dead. A life not really well understood, but they knew that it was there because of some secret teachings that had been given. Now, so the valley of the shadow of death, and they would fear no evil, meaning that no matter what comes, no matter what happens, they're not going to be afraid of anything, because they know that the Spirit of God, thou art with me, is with them. Then they say, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Well, the shepherd, they used three things to protect their flocks. They had a staff, a large, long pole, like a spear, sharp on one end, I might add. Then they had a club or a rod, and of course they also had the slingshot, of which David killed the great giant Goliath with, that we'll remember. And then we go to this, they comfort them. Sure, it's comfort because they know that when the wolves come or a rustler comes or whatever it would be, they'd be ready for them with all that modern equipment. They could fight them off. Then it goes into, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. We think of a table as a plateau, you might say, a mesa, pray tell, in a place that you would place things on. But in those days, the table simply meant you prepared a meal. You gave me my food. And so you prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Even though there were things there, natural disasters, God only knows, you only know, that could interfere with that, it didn't matter because it was always going to be there. And then thou anointest my head with oil. That was an important one. Remember, they were out in the fields a lot. It's pretty dry out in the desert. It's dry almost everywhere, but the vermin, the bugs would get to them, but there were oils, oil of clove and different oils that they could anoint their head with and get rid of anything that bothered them. Also, they used oil as a very sacred thing. So to anoint us my head with oil could be sacred, also could be explaining, again, you're protecting me from anything. And my cup runneth over. Well, they didn't have a lot of eating utensils. I guess the cup was the big thing. But anytime your cup runneth over, that simply means it's full. And full, whether it's money or water or oil or whatever it is, it runs over. It's packed to the brim and patted down. Then surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Well, that's because they knew they were living the religious life they were supposed to. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. See, again, we're back to that death. When it happens, the goodness and mercy will follow us, and we'll die a nice, pleasant death, and then we'll go right into God's house. That's the basic, rough illustration or interpretation of the 23rd Psalm. Now, there's a man who is a very important man, I might add. It's Blaine Mays, Reverend Dr. Blaine Mays, who is the present president of the INTA. That's the International New Thought Alliance. That's probably the oldest and still the largest of all the organizations for the New Thought churches, philosophers, and teachers. And he took his time out to give us a modern interpretation, which I'm going to read to you now, of the same 23rd Psalm. Now this is from Blaine Mays, Blaine C. Mays, and he adapted it to fit in the world of the New Thought people. Because the Lord my God is the shepherd of my being and my world, I cannot want. His love makes me rest in the conviction of my own spiritual nature. His understanding leads me to the inner sanctuary of life, peace, and newness. His life restores my soul, my mind, and my body. His intelligence guides me in the understanding use of all my spiritual powers. Although I may walk through the valley of the shadow of my fears and misgivings, I will not doubt, for thou art with me. Thy love, thy peace, and thy presence, they comfort and sustain me. Thou hast prepared an unseen and unthought of blessing for me in every need. Thou anointest my being with thy pure light. I am filled and thrilled with thy holy presence. Yes, Father, I know that your good is ever with me and in me, every moment of the day and all the days of my life. I shall indeed forever dwell in the conviction of this spiritual awareness. Amen. I like that. I like it, but does it fit today? You know, think about it. Today, how would they start that off? They'd say, hey, the government's right up here, and my beliefs and the way I feel is going to take care of me. And there isn't anything I could want that won't be delivered through the system. Why, we don't have to worry about the gas for our wheels, or we need to worry about the mortgage on the house or any of that stuff, because it's all going to be taken care of. And as far as my happiness or my soul, well, we know that as long as we follow the law, we're going to be okay. And yea, though I walk through the valley of all these tribulations and appearances of things not being right, I don't have to fear anything anymore, because I'm being taken care of. Why, they got a 357 and an Uzi, so I could walk down the south side of Chicago, the murder capital of the world right now, and not worry about a thing. And as far as that table before me, hey, I can go into any buffet and get all I want anytime I want. Well, I'm kidding, of course, but you know, that's the idea. We're supposed to have fun when we learn, and any kind of time we learn, it should be fun. May we make this a lot of fun for you, and may you learn things and take the time to be inspired to investigate other things. That reminds me, don't forget to go into our sister site, www.tont.org, because that's where the good stuff is. I'm even on there occasionally, and I do a little different thing, not the old Doc Young shtick, but something that I think you might like. God bless y'all. Adios, amigo.